Melania is a complete disaster. Those were the opening words splashed across the front page of the National Observer on an unusually brisk early morning in New York City. The headline, penned by controversial journalist Jack Thompson, immediately set off a chain reaction that would forever alter the media landscape. For Donald Trump, a man whose public persona and personal legacy were inextricably intertwined with his family, this was not a mere exercise in opinion. It was a direct, scathing attack on his wife's honor and, by extension, on his own reputation. Inside Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, the atmosphere in Trump's spacious, well-appointed office shifted dramatically as his executive assistant burst in with an urgent message. The sleek, modern space, adorned with tasteful American art, polished mahogany furniture, and the occasional gold accent reflecting decades of triumph, had always been a sanctuary of power and precision. But today, as the assistant relayed the news, an air of disbelief mingled with simmering anger. The assistant explained in a low, steady tone, "Mr. Trump, the latest edition of the National Observer just hit the stands." The headline reads exactly as you might imagine. Trump's eyes, accustomed to the relentless scrutiny of the press, locked onto the words on the printed page. In that moment, his face transformed from the casual confidence of a busy executive to a mask of steely resolve. Every detail of the article was scrutinized: the biting tone, the exaggerated language, and most damning of all, the personal nature of the insult. Melania is a complete disaster. The phrase repeated in his mind as he considered the implications. To him, his wife was not merely a partner, she was the embodiment of elegance, grace, and a stabilizing force behind his vast empire. The crude dismissal of her character was, therefore, an affront that could not be ignored. Within minutes, the tranquil hum of the office was replaced by a flurry of hushed conversations and rapid-fire exchanges among his senior aides and advisors. In a glass-walled conference room overlooking the bustling streets of Midtown, a group of trusted figures, legal experts, communication specialists, and personal aides, gathered to formulate an immediate response. Robert Clarkson, a seasoned legal strategist known for his unwavering attention to detail, was among the first to speak. "This isn't a matter of political commentary or opinion," he insisted. "It's a calculated attack on personal dignity. We must document every inaccuracy and bias in this article." At the same time, Emily Ross, head of Trump's communications team, already began drafting a statement. Her voice was measured but firm as she explained to her team, "We're not just countering a bad review, we're sending a message that personal attacks, especially those aimed at the integrity of our family, will not go unanswered." The group agreed that the response needed to be both legal and public relations oriented, underscoring the principle that while freedom of expression is sacrosanct in America, it does not grant a license to defame without consequence. Outside, New York City was awakening to a day charged with controversy. In coffee shops, on busy subway platforms, and across digital forums, opinions diverged sharply. Some hailed the journalists' right to criticize, asserting that free speech was a cornerstone of American democracy. Others, however, decried the article as an egregious overstep, a blatant intrusion into private life and a personal vendetta against a public figure's family. For Trump, the stakes were personal. "This is not about censoring opinions," he later remarked in a private conversation with a close confidant. "It's about defending the honor of the people who matter most to me." Back in his office, Trump meticulously reread the article, noting every nuance of language and every factual inaccuracy. His mind raced as he considered the potential fallout, not only in the court of public opinion but also in legal arenas, where defamation could be proven with sufficient evidence. "Every word in this piece is an attack," he murmured, his eyes narrowing with determination. "We must respond decisively." Throughout the day, as the office buzzed with activity, staff members coordinated a multi-pronged response. Telephone lines rang continuously as Trump's aides reached out to legal experts, media partners, and influential political allies. Behind closed doors, strategies were debated vigorously. One senior advisor, speaking in a hushed tone to another, noted, "This isn't just about one article. Jack Thompson has a history of sensationalism. We need to expose the pattern and ensure that his methods are laid bare for the public to see." In parallel, the communications team prepared for an extensive media blitz. Draft statements were reviewed repeatedly to strike a balance between assertiveness and credibility. The intent was clear: to reclaim the narrative from a journalist whose words had ignited a firestorm of controversy. "Our objective," Emily Ross explained in a strategy meeting, "is to reaffirm that while critics are entitled to their opinions, there is a line that must not be crossed when it comes to personal defamation. As the morning turned into afternoon, the incident evolved from a singular moment of shock to the opening salvo in what would become a full-scale campaign. Every member of the Trump Tower staff, legal, communications, cybersecurity, was mobilized, united in the determination that the insult must be met with an equally formidable response. The words "Melania is a complete disaster" no longer existed merely as a headline. They had become a symbol of an attack on personal honor that would be challenged on every front. By the end of the day, as the city's neon lights began to twinkle against the twilight sky, it was clear that the first chapter of this unfolding drama was only the beginning. What had started as a crude offhand comment in a major publication had evolved into a call to arms, a declaration that in modern America, where the media wields tremendous influence, there must be accountability for every word that crosses the line between opinion and personal attack. And for Donald Trump, that accountability would be enforced without hesitation, defending his family's honor as if the very foundation of his legacy depended on it. In the immediate aftermath of that incendiary headline, the corridors of Trump Tower transformed into a hive of urgency and calculated activity. Donald Trump, upon reading the defaming article, reacted not with unbridled fury but with a measured, almost instinctive drive to secure his family's honor. Within moments of seeing the printed page, he grabbed his state-of-the-art smartphone and began a series of rapid-fire calls to his most trusted advisors. Among those on his contact list was Henry Miller, a longtime friend and chief of security, who had weathered many media storms with him. "This is an act of defamation, a personal attack on my family," Trump stated in a terse, determined tone as he relayed the news. "Melania's reputation is not something I will allow to be tarnished by irresponsible journalism." Back in the bustling epicenter of his office, the reaction was swift. Staffers who had already been on high alert for breaking news scrambled to coordinate an immediate response. In the modern glass-walled conference room, its panoramic view of Manhattan underscoring the weight of the situation, a high-stakes meeting was convened. Senior legal advisors, communications experts, and digital strategists gathered around a large oak table. The air was thick with anticipation as each participant understood that this was not simply another media spat, it was a direct challenge to the integrity of the Trump brand. Robert Clarkson, the firm's lead legal strategist, wasted no time. "We need to treat this as a deliberate act of defamation," he insisted, his voice steady as he began outlining the potential legal pathways available. "We will compile every detail of this article, every misrepresentation, every exaggeration, and build an irrefutable case that this is a targeted assault on personal dignity." His colleagues nodded in agreement as they set about the task of dissecting the article line by line, identifying points of factual error and bias that could later be marshaled in court. Simultaneously, Emily Ross, who led the communications team with a blend of precision and passion, began drafting an official statement designed to put the incident into context. "Our response must be clear and unequivocal," she instructed her team. "We are not here to silence criticism. We are here to demand accountability when that criticism descends into baseless personal attacks." The statement was intended to be disseminated across all major media channels: television, radio, online news platforms, and social media, ensuring that the Trump family's perspective would be heard loud and clear. Outside the imposing walls of Trump Tower, the pulse of New York City was quickening. Social media feeds lit up with immediate reactions. On Twitter, Facebook, and myriad online forums, supporters decried the insult while critics debated the boundaries of free expression. Yet amid the digital clamor, one thing became evident: the issue was no longer confined to the pages of a newspaper. It had evolved into a national conversation about the responsibilities of the press and the limits of acceptable commentary on personal character. Within the secure confines of his private office, lined with symbols of his storied career and personal achievements, Trump reviewed the mounting reports and real-time updates provided by his team. Every call, every meeting was logged meticulously, each detail recorded for both legal and strategic purposes. "We must control the narrative," he declared in a brief but impassioned speech during an emergency briefing. "We cannot allow an irresponsible article to shape public opinion or undermine the honor of my family. Every resource at our disposal will be used to correct this injustice." The strategy unfolding within those walls was a masterclass in crisis management. Legal experts worked diligently to verify every claim made in the article, cross-referencing with internal documents and historical records of Jack Thompson's previous work. Meanwhile, the digital team activated a sophisticated monitoring system to track online mentions of the article, identifying trending hashtags and influential voices that could either exacerbate the controversy or help steer the discussion toward a more balanced perspective. As the day progressed, The response evolved into a tightly orchestrated operation. Trump's inner circle, comprising senior advisors, trusted lawyers, and experienced media professionals, worked in concert to ensure that no facet of the emerging crisis went unaddressed. In a series of rapid-fire phone conferences and in-person strategy sessions held in various high-security meeting rooms across the tower, the group debated every conceivable angle, from immediate legal notices to longer-term public relations campaigns designed to restore the narrative to one of respect and dignity. One particularly intense session took place in a conference room decorated with American flags and historic photographs, a subtle reminder of the nation's foundational values. There, Trump himself spoke directly to his advisors. "When our family is attacked, we respond with every tool at our disposal," he said, his voice low and resolute. "This is about protecting our legacy, our reputation. No one, and I mean no one, is allowed to undermine the values we stand for." His words were met with determined nods and the silent promise that the battle would be fought on all fronts. Throughout that critical day, the energy in Trump Tower was electric. Teams coordinated tirelessly, legal experts drafting precise documents, communication staff refining key messages, and cybersecurity specialists analyzing data streams from social media networks. Every element of the response was interwoven into a comprehensive plan that aimed not only to counter the immediate damage but also to set a precedent for future incidents. "We are establishing a clear line in the sand," one advisor commented. "Anyone who attempts to defame our family will learn that there are consequences." By dusk, as the city's skyline began to sparkle against the encroaching night, the immediate reaction operation had coalesced into a formidable force. In that moment of quiet reflection in his private study, Trump looked out over the illuminated city and acknowledged the enormity of the challenge. "This is just the beginning," he murmured, the weight of his responsibility mingling with a renewed sense of determination. "We will see this through, and we will prevail." Thus, the immediate reaction was not a mere spur-of-the-moment burst of emotion, but a calculated systematic mobilization, a clear signal that any attack on personal honor, particularly one aimed at his beloved Melania, would be met with an unyielding and swift counterstrike. The stage was now set for the next phase, a strategic offensive that would challenge the very foundations of irresponsible journalism in America. Once the initial shock had subsided, Donald Trump and his dedicated team transitioned from reactive measures to a carefully calculated multi-pronged strategy designed to dismantle the credibility of Jack Thompson and expose the systemic flaws in his reporting. This phase of the operation was executed with the precision of a military campaign, each move planned, every resource mobilized, and all efforts coordinated to send an unequivocal message. Personal defamation, especially when it crosses the line into malicious character assassination, will be met with resolute legal and public scrutiny. The cornerstone of this strategy was the creation of an exhaustive dossier on Jack Thompson. Under the leadership of Robert Clarkson, the legal team initiated a thorough review of Thompson's entire body of work. For weeks, they meticulously combed through past articles, interviews, and even social media posts, documenting every instance of sensationalism, factual distortion, and overt bias. "This is not a one-off lapse in judgment," Clarkson asserted in one strategy session. "It's a consistent pattern of irresponsible journalism, one that deliberately sacrifices truth for shock value. We need every scrap of evidence to prove that Thompson has made a habit of distorting reality." Every misrepresentation was catalogued and cross-referenced with verified sources, ensuring that the dossier would later serve as the backbone of a robust defamation case. Parallel to the legal preparations, Emily Ross and the communications team embarked on a mission to control the narrative in the public sphere. A series of press releases, carefully worded and fact-checked, was drafted to not only repudiate the false claims contained in the article, but also to initiate a broader discussion about media accountability. "Our message must be unwavering," Ross explained during a late-night meeting. "We are not attacking free speech, we are advocating for responsible speech. When journalists sacrifice accuracy for sensational headlines, they undermine the very principles of our democracy." These statements were scheduled for simultaneous release across multiple channels, major television networks, radio broadcasts, online news portals, and even targeted social media campaigns aimed at influencers and opinion leaders. Recognizing that a legal and media strategy alone would not suffice, Trump's team also set its sights on the digital battleground. A specialized group of cybersecurity experts was tasked with real-time monitoring of online discussions, ensuring that every reference to Thompson's article could be countered with factual rebuttals. Advanced algorithms were deployed to track trending hashtags, popular memes, and viral posts that either supported or challenged the Trump family's position. The digital space is where narratives are born and spread, noted the head of the cybersecurity team. By controlling that narrative, we can preempt and neutralize any attempts to amplify misinformation. At the same time, discreet meetings were arranged with influential figures in the media and business communities. In exclusive, invitation-only gatherings held at upscale hotels and private clubs across New York, Trump's advisors met with top editors, media moguls, and political allies. The objective was clear: secure public endorsements of the Trump family's stance and, if possible, persuade these influential figures to reassess the ethical standards that had allowed Thompson's work to gain traction. When respected voices in the industry speak out, one media executive confided, it not only vindicates our position but also sends a powerful signal that sensationalism and personal vendettas have no place in responsible journalism. While these discussions and preparations were underway, the legal team continued to refine the defamation lawsuit against Thompson. Every paragraph of the controversial article was dissected, with legal experts preparing arguments that pinpointed the deliberate manipulation of facts and the reckless nature of the language used. Expert witnesses, renowned scholars in journalism ethics and media law, were lined up to testify on the standards of credible reporting. This lawsuit isn't just about seeking damages, Clarkson remarked in a closed-door meeting. It's about setting a precedent, a clear message that while the First Amendment protects free expression, it does not shield those who deliberately spread falsehoods to defame and humiliate. Throughout these intense sessions, Trump maintained an active role, personally reviewing updates from each department in his private office. Surrounded by symbols of his storied career, from framed photographs of past business successes to mementos of political milestones, he would often pause to reflect on the gravity of the situation. This isn't merely a legal battle, he confided to one of his senior aides. It's a fight for the very soul of American journalism. We're defending not only our family's honor, but also the principle that every public figure has the right to expect truthful, responsible reporting. The multi-layered strategy began to take shape as a symphony of coordinated actions. Legal experts gathered evidence, media specialists crafted narratives, digital teams tracked and countered misinformation, and influential allies lent their voices to the cause. Each component was designed to interlock seamlessly with the others, creating a formidable barrier against any further attempts to tarnish the Trump name. Our goal is to ensure that every angle is covered, Emily Ross stressed in one strategy session. We will not leave any stone unturned, and every attempt at defamation will be met with irrefutable proof of its falsity. One of the more challenging aspects of this campaign was addressing the tension between upholding the freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution and protecting individual dignity. Internal debates often arose over how to frame the message without appearing to curb free speech. In these discussions, advisors were careful to articulate that the campaign was not an effort to muzzle journalists, but rather a necessary step to reaffirm that with the power of the press comes the responsibility to report accurately and ethically. We are fighting for a media landscape where truth matters, one senior advisor explained. There must be accountability when the line is crossed into defamation. As the comprehensive strategy was finalized, it became clear that the Trump team was not simply preparing for a single legal case or a temporary media storm. They were laying the groundwork for a lasting change in the way personal attacks in journalism would be treated. The combined legal, media, and digital operations were designed to demonstrate unequivocally that irresponsible sensationalism had consequences, not just for the individuals targeted, but for the entire fabric of public discourse. By the time the day's planning reached its conclusion, every member of the team was imbued with a sense of purpose. The strategy for countermeasures had evolved into a blueprint for action, a definitive multi-pronged response that promised to hold accountable anyone who dared to compromise the integrity of personal honor for the sake of ratings. In a final round of meetings held late into the night, Trump himself reaffirmed the message: "We stand for truth, integrity, and the right to defend one's family." This campaign will ensure that any attempt to defame us will be met with unwavering resolve and undeniable proof. Thus, what had begun as a singular incendiary headline was now being met with a comprehensive, coordinated operation that spanned legal corridors, media outlets, and the vast digital landscape. The stage was set for a battle that would not only determine the fate of one reckless article, but would also redefine the boundaries of ethical journalism in America. In the turbulent weeks that followed the initiation of Trump's counteroffensive, the consequences for Jack Thompson began to unfold with a relentless, almost cinematic inevitability. What started as a provocative headline quickly evolved into an unyielding campaign that exposed the dark underbelly of sensationalist journalism. For Thompson, a once respected byline in major news outlets, the the orchestrated response proved to be the catalyst for a rapid and comprehensive downfall. At first, subtle signs of trouble emerged in the industry. As legal filings detailing the defamation case were made public, colleagues and media insiders started to question the reliability of Thompson's past work. Editorial meetings at several prominent American publications became fraught with discussions about his credibility. "Have you noticed the pattern in his reporting?" one editor asked during a closed session. "It's not just about stirring controversy, it's about manipulating the facts for the sake of sensational headlines." The realization that Thompson's work had long been built on a foundation of exaggeration, and at times, deliberate misrepresentation began to erode the respect he had once commanded. Inside the courtroom, the Trump legal team, led by the unyielding Robert Clarkson, systematically dismantled the integrity of Thompson's journalistic record. Every piece of evidence, every documented instance of factual distortion, every email suggesting a bias, was laid out with meticulous precision. Expert witnesses, revered figures in media ethics, testified to the standards of responsible reporting, and their testimonies painted a damning picture of a professional who had consistently sacrificed accuracy for the allure of controversy. "This is not isolated misconduct," one witness declared, his words echoing in the hushed courtroom. "It is a deliberate pattern of behavior aimed at sensationalism at any cost." Such declarations resonated not only with the judge but also with a courtroom audience that was increasingly sympathetic to the Trump family's plight. Outside the legal arena, the tide of public opinion had begun to turn sharply against Thompson. Major news organizations, once eager to showcase his provocative style, distanced themselves from his work. Advertisers, wary of the negative associations linked to his byline, started pulling their contracts. What had once been a lucrative career was now unraveling before his eyes. Industry insiders, journalists, editors, and critics publicly questioned his methods. "Jack Thompson is no longer an example of bold investigative reporting," one veteran reporter remarked in a televised interview. "He has become a cautionary tale about the perils of crossing the line into reckless defamation." Social media, always the accelerant of controversy, exploded with condemnation. Hashtags denouncing Thompson trended across platforms, and users from every corner of the nation joined in a chorus of outrage. Memes and critical posts proliferated, each one dissecting his past missteps and casting a long shadow over his future prospects. The digital backlash was swift and unrelenting. What had once been the work of an influential journalist was now fodder for ridicule and scorn. "This is the price of irresponsible journalism," one influential blogger wrote, capturing the prevailing sentiment that Thompson had not only betrayed his professional responsibilities but had also endangered the trust that the public placed in the press. As Thompson's professional standing crumbled, so too did his personal life. Friends and former colleagues, once proud to be associated with his daring style, now distanced themselves. Invitations to industry panels and speaking engagements dried up. In hushed conversations among former allies, it was said that Thompson had lost not only his career but also the respect and trust of an entire community. "He's isolated," one former editor confided. "No one wants to be linked to someone who has shown such a flagrant disregard for the truth." The isolation was complete. Every attempt he made to rebuild his career was met with skepticism and derision. Within the legal proceedings, the accumulated evidence proved overwhelming. Each exhibit, every meticulously annotated email and article excerpt, chipped away at the veneer of credibility that Thompson had once maintained. Legal experts predicted that the case would set a historic precedent in defamation law, one that would send a clear message to any journalist tempted to sacrifice accuracy for sensationalism. The meticulously prepared dossier, representing months of investigative work by Trump's team, became the cornerstone of a case that was less about monetary compensation and more about re-establishing the boundaries of responsible journalism. Public appearances by Thompson became increasingly rare and fraught with tension. Invitations to high-profile debates and televised interviews dwindled, replaced by an almost unanimous reluctance from the media to give him a platform. Each time he attempted to speak out in his defense, the questions were sharp and unyielding, reminders of his past transgressions and the mounting evidence against him. His once commanding presence in newsrooms and on talk shows was now supplanted by an image of a man beset by the very controversies he had once used to capture attention. The dramatic downfall of Jack Thompson was not merely a personal tragedy, it became a watershed moment in the national dialogue on media ethics. His precipitous decline served as a stark demonstration that the power of the press must always be tempered by responsibility and accountability. Thompson's case forced the entire industry to reckon with a vital question: how much sensationalism is too much, and where should the line be drawn between robust investigative reporting and reckless defamation? In the end, the orchestrated campaign led by Donald Trump and his team not only destroyed the professional standing of Jack Thompson, but also ignited a broader movement within American journalism. Newsrooms began to institute stricter standards for fact-checking and source verification, and editorial boards initiated internal reviews of their policies to ensure that the kind of unchecked sensationalism that had characterized Thompson's work would be curtailed in the future. The downfall of one man became the catalyst for an industry-wide reassessment, a turning point that underscored the principle that with the power of free expression comes an equally weighty responsibility to maintain the truth. In the wake of the legal triumph and the dismantling of a once powerful journalistic force, America's media landscape found itself at a crossroads. Over the ensuing weeks and months, Donald Trump took center stage at a series of press conferences and interviews to outline not only his personal vindication, but also a broader commentary on the state of modern journalism. Standing before flashing cameras in a modern well-lit briefing room at Trump Tower, he delivered a message that was both measured and forceful. While free speech is an inviolable right in the United States, it does not provide a shield for those who engage in malicious defamation and reckless personal attacks. During one of the most widely watched press conferences, Trump recounted the sequence of events, from the publication of the incendiary headline, "Melania is a complete disaster," to the relentless campaign that led to the downfall of Jack Thompson. His tone was calm yet resolute as he explained, "This campaign was never about suppressing free expression, it was about demanding accountability. We stand for truth and integrity, and no one is above that standard." His words resonated with many, sparking fervent discussions in newsrooms, boardrooms, and social media channels across the country. The official reports released by the Trump administration provided a comprehensive account of the multifaceted strategy employed. Detailed documentation of the legal filings, the painstaking collection of evidence, and the coordinated public relations efforts were made available to the public. These documents served not only as a record of the proceedings, but also as a clarion call for responsible journalism. Media analysts and legal experts pored over these reports, sparking debates that reached far beyond the immediate case. "This is a watershed moment," one legal scholar remarked during a televised forum. "It sets a precedent for how we must treat defamation that crosses the line into personal vendetta." In the months that followed, the impact on the broader media community was palpable. Several major news organizations undertook internal reviews of their editorial practices, tightening fact-checking procedures and demanding higher standards from their reporters. Workshops on media ethics saw unprecedented attendance, as journalists and editors grappled with the lessons laid bare by the Trump campaign. "The case has forced us to re-examine our responsibilities," observed a veteran journalist during an industry conference. "It is a reminder that while provocative reporting may capture attention, it must never come at the expense of truth and accountability." Simultaneously, the case ignited a broader national debate over the delicate balance between the protection of free speech and the need for personal accountability. Lawmakers, academics, and media critics engaged in spirited discussions in the halls of Congress, at university symposiums, and on countless online platforms. Some cautioned that the rigorous measures taken against Thompson could potentially be misinterpreted as an encroachment on journalistic freedom, while others maintained that the case underscored a fundamental truth, that every individual, regardless of public stature, is entitled to a defense of their personal honor. When the press wields its power irresponsibly, there must be consequences, Trump emphasized in one interview. "It is not about stifling criticism, it is about preserving the dignity that underpins our democracy." For Trump, the resolution of the battle was both a personal vindication and a broader statement on the state of American public discourse. In subsequent interviews, he reflected on the ordeal with a blend of measured relief and unwavering determination. "We have demonstrated that personal attacks, especially those designed to defame and degrade, will be met with resolute action," he said. "This is not just about me or Melania, it is about safeguarding the principle that truth and integrity must prevail." His remarks found a receptive audience among supporters and sparked renewed debates among his critics, each side interpreting the outcome through the lens of their own values. Beyond the immediate media and legal repercussions, the long-term consequences of the case began to crystallize in unexpected ways. Lawmakers initiated discussions about updating defamation laws to provide clearer guidelines for what constitutes irresponsible journalism. Academic institutions reformed their media studies curricula, integrating case studies from the Trump campaign as cautionary examples of the dangers inherent in unbridled sensationalism. In classrooms and think tanks across the nation, students and scholars analyzed the events, drawing lessons on the intersection of free speech, accountability, and the evolving digital landscape. As the national conversation evolved, one overarching truth emerged: the need for a renewed commitment to responsible journalism. Trump's resolute response had not only protected his family's honor, but had also set in motion a broader movement demanding higher standards from the media. Editorial boards, once enamored by the allure of provocative headlines, began to recalibrate their priorities, placing truth and ethical reporting at the forefront. "This case has redefined the rules of the game," commented a senior editor at a major newspaper. "It is a wake-up call for the entire industry, reminding us that with the freedom to report comes the responsibility to do so accurately and respectfully." In reflecting on the entire campaign, Trump's final message was unequivocal: "We have shown that while the freedom of the press is a cornerstone of our society, it is not a license for unbridled defamation. There must be accountability, and those who abuse their platform will be held responsible." His words resonated as a rallying cry, a call for a future in which public discourse is characterized not by sensationalism and personal vendettas, but by a shared commitment to integrity and truth. Thus, the aftermath of the campaign marked a turning point in American media and public life. The case of Jack Thompson became a lasting testament to the idea that while free expression remains essential, it must always be balanced by a commitment to accuracy and respect for individual dignity. As the nation moved forward, the lessons learned from this hard-fought battle continued to shape debates on media ethics, defamation law, and the responsibilities inherent in wielding the power of the press in the digital age.